ladies and gentlemen, to this episode of the Women's Show. My name is Tricia, Gloria, Nabaye, and I am glad to host you yet again. We are in the middle or at the beginning of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And the conversations are going on. I think over the weekend, a lot of organizations had campaigns continue. And we are saying that violence against women needs to end and must end. Today, we interrogate, the commitments of young women in advocating and fighting against gender-based violence. And to have this conversation with me, I have Hellena and Prisca, who will introduce themselves further, and then we dive into this conversation. Welcome, ladies, to the show.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to give you a minute to introduce yourself, for 30 seconds to introduce yourself, and then we dive in. We'll begin with you.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Hellena Sakisa, a student at Makerere University. Very passionate about feminism and learning, and also being a voice to the voiceless, especially the girls, and also looking forward to create platforms, safe platforms for girls and women inclusivity in decision making.
That's a mouthful. Welcome to this conversation. I just love that girls are the center of it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. My name is Prisca. Akellowanga. It's quite a hard name, but yeah, you can call me Prisca. I'm very excited to particularly contribute to this conversation because as young women we ought to to own the voice, to speak up. These are things that are happening, and for me, every 16 days that come every year in November, it reminds me that we have to, as young women, or even as a women's movement at large, we have to recommit every single year to help victims, but also to find solutions so that we end this. We don't want to have this 20, 30 years later having the same conversations. We want to have, conversations of we fought this and we have come to this result. A couple of years later. So contributing to this conversation excites me and I can't wait.
Thank you. And maybe to begin from that note, renewing our commitments every November to, the fight against gender-based violence. When you look at, our quest for gender equality, and it almost feels as though every step forward is meshed with 2 steps back. When you look at the global pandemic that happened, when you look at the wars that are happening, especially now in our epoch where we have the Congo war happening, when you look at, the fact that girls aren't in school, even in times when they should be. Yeah. Against such a backdrop, how do we, create pushback as women, even as young girls?
I think, first of all, as women, we need, even when we think or try to brainstorm and benchmark what is it that we need to do as young women or as a women's movement to actually achieve a sustainable move, because we don't want to go back to girls need to be in school. That was something that was done so many years ago, but right now we see that so many girls that are when you just step out of Kampala like this, or even in the marginalized communities in Kampala, you find every household has a girl that is not going to school because they have these different challenges they are facing. Yeah. So I feel like as the women's movement, we ought to, to think of sustainable solutions to this. And education may not actually be, I need to go, as a teenage girl, I need to be in a high school or something. Education comes in different forms. Yeah. And I think we need to explore those options because not everyone might actually get that chance. But I think a girl that is empowered or has been educated, either, by being skilled or mentored to take on certain commitments, can actually take a lot more, can contribute even a lot more to that movement when they step out or when they realize what their role is. So for me, I think we need to explore the different options. If I find a girl who is probably 16 years old and they've dropped out of school because they don't have tuition, I may not be able to take her back to school because even from Form 4, she may not be able to contribute, effectively. But if I took her to a place or mentored her and skilled her with a skill that could contribute to the growth of her life, but also to empower the people, the girls in her spaces, is ultimately sustainable, right? Because we get better results from that. So I think as young women, or as a women's movement, we need to explore all those options. But I mean, commit to them. Let's not just do and want to show that I have helped 2 or 3 girls. Let's commit to helping and holding a hand. Like, as you move forward, bring someone along with you. That's like sisterhood, you know? Yeah.
And I hear you. And a lot of what I hear you say is perhaps the blackboard, black and white, might not even be just the answer, but that we find ways of skilling and empowering girls out of their agencies, to give them agency to be able to advocate for themselves. I was reading in the newspaper and in New Vision, in Daily Monitor, and the World Vision Camp Group, I think it's an NGO, had created, you know, a way for girls in Arua to be able to advocate for themselves when it comes to teenage pregnancies. And I think if we have children at the forefront of also these, you know, calls, it makes it easy for them to own the solutions, but also to say, this is what we need. And this is how we need to be advocated for better. I want to bring you in, Helen, there, when it comes to then now, beyond skilling, social enterprising, and mentorship. How do we, you know, marry these two things in order to, you know, have a better empowered girl or a better empowered lady in society today?
Okay, I think for these to be incorporated together, to work together, there is one stakeholder that most of the women's movements, governments, international organizations are failing to, you know, look at and say this person is supposed to and that those are parents. You see, you cannot go to a girl's home and then you tell her, maybe Doreen, I have seen, I can help you this, I can help you that, we can create something, we can impact you in this way, but then you have not involved the parent. Because when we sit down and we look at these issues, they all stem from the families. Nothing that is happening to the girl child is not from the family. It is from the families, and the families are, you know, reluctant about it. It is because we have not looked out for the stakeholders who are parents.
And I think when I'm sorry to cut you short, when you say that the pandemic highlighted that, because a lot of the violence that happened on girls was from home. Exactly,
all that.
That's interesting. I've never looked at it from that perspective, that in collaborating and in coming together and in us calling for unite in this year's campaign, that the stakeholder that people always forget is a family, is a parent.
And actually, when it goes back to the conversation of a family, I personally want to say that part of what I am now is because of how I saw events happen around me growing up. And right now, when I do things, my mother asks me, Prisca, what are you doing? Because she doesn't understand that I could be the voice that will probably help a girl in a community, or a girl that may not have been, I won't say much privilege, but may not be able to speak like I can.
It's still privilege.
So she doesn't.
It's just a different kind of privilege.
She doesn't understand that. When I tell her, because I run an organization with a friend. I'm the programs coordinator. It's called Atangaza Foundation. So I tell my mother that this could be something great. And then she asks me, what, like, you need to work. I like to say I am always radical about some decisions that I make in regards to looking out for girls and women. And this is something that I don't take lightly. There's a point in my life where I had to make a decision. And that decision was either I do it for me, or I do it for them. And I chose to do it for them, because if I was to do it for me, it wasn't making sense. So I just move, and I want to go and be with them, be with those girls, speak to them, or challenge what is happening, challenge leaders and those local leaders that we have to work with somehow to achieve what we want. So for me, this is something that they don't. My family doesn't understand. My mother has already asked me, Prisca, what, like, why? What is this you are doing? And then recently I met a friend who I would like to say someone. Sometimes I look out because of the work she does. A lady called Mayanja. She has an organization called Smart Girls Uganda. So she also mentors and skills girls with skills that we have all made them look like they are meant for men. I cannot do plumbing. I cannot, I mean, exactly, which is so wrong. I can do all that. So this lady has challenged that narrative. So Mayanja told me, my mother has never understood the work I do, even when she's creating a lot of impact in the lives of so many girls. So for me, I think when it comes to the impact that family creates, it's something that, because we also need to know that we have a support system somewhere at home, because this is blood. Like, I will have a support system in friends and sisters in the movement, but it makes a lot of sense if I have it from the core, like from who I call my family. So for me, I think what she tells us is actually very fundamental. If we are also to inculcate, skilling the girls, helping these girls, young ones, because girls are victims to so many things from an age of 9. So why don't we then include them in the discussion? Why don't we then bring them on board? For me, I think that would be very fundamental.
Can I say something? I also think, apart from family, there is a queen bee syndrome for those ladies who have really made it, and they really do not want to associate with the young girls. This young girl looks at you, Tricia, and is like, Tricia inspires me, but how can I get there? When she gets opportunity to see Tricia is all around, guarded, so she will not get the experience, the time or the experience from the talks she would have with Tricia physically. Tricia telling her, you can do this, you can do that, or I have an opportunity for you, such stuff. And I call upon the ladies that if you have made it and you have access to opportunities, why not bring these young girls on board? You should not only be there impacting the other group, and yet you're leaving the young ones.
Especially because the young ones are the future. They're the ones going to take your job. Anyway.
And they will also bring, they have quicker access to actually the more marginalized people who we want to help.
And so having them in this conversation is bringing a demographic that is not present often. Maybe also the other thing that I wanted us to interrogate, a month back, Jacqueline Nakabembe passed away after a long time of being searched for. When they found that she had been raped, allegedly raped, killed, and dumped. Before Jacqueline, there was another Makerere University student that was killed, raped and killed. And these are not exceptions to the rule, because there are those we actually don't even know about. And so in advocating, it almost feels like while we do this work, there is a lot of pushback, a lot of femicide that is going on. I'm yet to see the report that speaks to Jacqueline's death. I am yet to see the report that speaks to the other previous Makerere University student that passed away. But in the lack of police accountability, how do we not just even protect ourselves? Because we do protect ourselves. But how do we call authorities to account for the senseless deaths that are happening to girls?
Oh my God, it's so hard. But so honestly, it's so absurd. It's very disheartening to know that these things are happening. And for me, first, I think, even because we have seen police and the authorities fail us at so many grounds, and that has made us also fail ourselves at so many grounds. I think for me, I would love to address the fact that there is a lot of silence, and silence is breeding more. These men who do these things, they know that she will not speak, right?
Yes.
If she doesn't speak, the next man will do the same because she will not speak.
Yeah.
So we are seeing these two are not the only cases.
Yeah.
The moment you dive into community, you will be shocked by how many girls or women, even women who are old, by the way, not only university students, even women who are old, who are sitting on the violence, on such scenarios, they're not speaking about them. So for me, I'm sorry to say this, but I know it's not easy. I know we don't have the safest of spaces for women to speak. But also, the more we keep quiet, the more we are giving room and we are breeding
So our
this
silence
to
is
grow.
empowering all these.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So for me as women, because as we move forward, I don't think if 100 women, because there are more than 100 that are in society, if 100 women started marching against violence that is happening, or abusing them that is happening behind those closed doors that we don't know, if we started marching towards this, no one will stop us. No one.
And
Authority
maybe
will
I
be-
even want to highlight the beauty that was in the Women's March, the 2018 Women's March.
Yeah.
The message was sent, even though it was retracted, because a lot of times, say, oh, those are prostitutes, they are just moving.
Yeah.
But the message was, women should not die, and no one is held accountable to it.
Yeah.
And so when you say a march, I hear you. And I think that is the one thing that we now have started, we need to bring back.
Yeah.
The collective call to action.
Yes.
You know, the collective pull, the collective ask, like, because I know for a fact that there was a time when women stood,
Yeah.
people listened.
Yeah.
And even more women came on board. She was like, oh, I actually have people that I've shared such experiences with. I could join them. You will be shocked on how many women would, even in Kampala, that will join in along the way, and they'll feel more safe, because personally I feel safe around women. I feel safe because I know they somehow face the same things I face as a girl. So it's a safe space if we come together. If you go speak against me, I don't know whether you'll speak against all the other 100 women, but even if you did so, I know I have a space. There's someone who understands me, there's someone who hears me, and there's someone who is willing to listen to me. So for me, that's the one move that as women we need to go back to that. Those are the movements that, with all the achievements that the women's movement has been that has achieved, we have seen this happen through demonstrations, through movements. And for me, we can achieve better. We can get more results moving forward if we go back to those values and embrace them. So yeah.
Maybe just to bring you in, because you're also at university.
Yeah.
I wonder if the sexual harassment policy is active and alive in Makerere University. But then also, how do we deal with, the small pockets of violence that used to go unseen before? And I say that to remind ourselves of, the case for Mr. Wandera, who beat a student and, was reprimanded. But if there wasn't video evidence, is it possible that that lady would have gotten the justice that she got?
It's not really possible. She would have gotten the justice she wanted. And to tell you the truth is, I have had several of my friends being sexually harassed, and they come to me. Someone comes to me and tells me, Hellena, I've been sexually harassed. And I'm like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, because we have the sexual harassment policy at Makerere. It has been there. And so we try to tell these girls, please come and we follow up. An example is a very close friend of mine. She was sexually harassed. When I followed up, then the next day I had scheduled a meeting with the gender mainstreaming directorate. The girl called when it was like 2 minutes for me to enter the office. The girl called me and told me I am not coming.
Oh wow!
And I told her why. She told me I am not coming. Hellena, you want to put me in problems. And then I told her, okay. But then I had made a meeting with these people and I wouldn't let them down. So I had to go and meet them. So when I went to meet them, I spoke to these people, the stakeholders, and I began telling them the issues of what my friend has gone through. And I think something should be done. they told me, we have had cases, we have had girls who come up like this, and we have helped some, but it is because still it goes back to silence.
How
of
do
the
we break the
victim.
silence?
One thing that I question myself so much is, yes, I will come up as Hellena to speak about my sexual harasser. But then, what is the guarantee that I will be given security?
Yeah.
I, Sakisa Hellena, I'm speaking and I'm like, this so-and-so, Dr. So-and-so has done this to me, and I feel like he should be reprimanded, he should be expelled or suspended from the university. But then going back, because I'm about to speak out, but then I'm looking at, okay, this guy is going to give me a retake. I will never graduate from Makerere University. Or the whole class is likely to be punished.
I hear you.
This issue of sexual harassment still goes back to which type of security are you guaranteeing the victims?
Yes.
Because very many girls, very many women want to come up, but their sexual harassers are in big offices.
So I hear you. What I hear you say is the power that the abusers hold
Yes.
will even make justice hard to be gotten.
Exactly.
And so, and I don't know how to dismantle power when it comes to our abusers, because, for example, I'll give you an example of Samantha Mwesigwe, who for a long time has been struggling with a gentleman in the judicial system, only for him to be made judge. And so in the search for justice, how do you navigate power? I don't know.
It's a question.
It's a big question.
Because
okay, I was also thinking of something. Why? I have come to my understanding that women, we are so powerful, and anything a woman puts her heart on, she can really do it. She can accomplish. I was saying, why don't we incorporate the women in various organizations, stakeholders? Maybe we put a woman whom we know, yes, she's in the judiciary, she's in the police. We have some women, but with the aim of, we want to find the perpetrators of these victims.
I hear you.
And also,
yeah,
I think power is quite a really big question because even you find women who are in big spaces who are still being victims to such. I think first we need to understand that an abuser is an abuser.
Yeah.
It's so rare. If they are in their first case, then there is a very high possibility back home they are either abusing their women, or their wives, or abusing their children. An abuser is an abuser. So for me, I think by the time Prisca, come to speak about, I may not be able to speak, but if I get to experience violence at university, a lecturer who is an abuser they have probably abused a couple of so many girls in that line, right?
Yeah.
For me, I think it goes back to our silence. If we have, I will give an example. If we have a judge who has abused a couple of women in the line, if these women stood up and spoke, 10 women, let me tell you this, even organizations even these people who are in power, who are appointing these people into higher ranks, will start. They may still want to have this person in that position, but there is a reputation at hand. As a country, how will you be looked at if you're keeping someone who is abusing so many women out there in a position of power? So I think first step, but also because we would love to think that first things will be first things.
Yeah.
Right now, are women speaking? No, they are not. Maybe if women were speaking, there would be more approaches to this. Maybe we would see something happen. So for me, I think even as we mentor or as we move out in societies, we need to empower women to speak. We need to use our voice because that's what we have. I may not have the power, but you will not shut my mouth.
Especially coming from a culture where women for a long time were told not to speak.
Not to speak.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for me, I think we may not have the power, but we will have our voice. So can we use our voice and see what happens? Can we use what we have within our reach? Because also if in quest for more power, because I may want to get more power so that I get justice, right? If I in quest for more power, I might get more abuse. I mean, they might abuse me even more. Because if we are dealing with a judge, you might have to go deal with a couple of other people around them, which might cost you more pain and bring more damage to your life. So for me, I think we need to use our voice as women. That is what we have. That is our power. And I have had a lot of, songs and articles that address the challenge of the challenges women face in society, and it's always re-echoed that we use our voice. We use our voice. It could be through music, it could be through movements, it could be through these platforms. If I spoke about something that happened to me on this platform, the person who did it to me will be threatened.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
They will be threatened. We'll see more girls actually approach Tricia, I want to speak about my story. Tricia, I want to do this or something. I think our voice is very powerful and we need to embrace that and use it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And maybe also in that narrative, over the weekend, I think 4 days back, Honorable Miriam Matembe quoted saying the judiciary has not done enough to protect women. And she was coming from a place where when we have a precedent of, while we said when we get into marriages, women should take 50-50. And because we know so property is power, also is empowerment for women. And so in a precedent where you only take what you worked for, or in a precedent where you get less than 20% of this property, it almost feels like we've placed women in an institution that won't serve them, and not just serve them, but will exploit them for a very long time. And with the absence of the marriage and divorce bill, judges have been left to their to any whimsical, narrative around marriage and what it should look like. How do we advocate differently in having the judiciary, not just, take on cases, but also protect women? Because we need to have precedences where it costs people to be abusive, to be violent, and to in cases of femicide, it should cost someone. Because it almost feels like, we are losing lives, we are losing women to situations that have not had accountability happen. How do we make sure that the judiciary protects women? I will begin with you, Helen.
This is a bit so hard because the judiciary still is a very big organ, and to me, I would think it would be one of the powerful platforms that would be helping or advocating for women's spaces, for safe places, and also, being giving a push to the women that, you go into this, you're protected. I just have to say there is still very much work to be done in the judiciary. For us or for the victims to be heard. And to me, I think this can be really done if the victims don't just take their story for granted. Why I think the judiciary sometimes is quiet about it leaves these women's issues not sorted out is because we have the silence and we have the femicide happening and we have the women at the front, but still they have the thing of, okay, it's just a minor thing, To me, I think women should stop taking things minor and front for accessibility to the judiciary, where they will be given a platform of equality, with not looking at the boss or the perpetrator, who's like, okay, he's big, he's, you know, powerful, but looking at the voice of the woman who has spoken. And I think government should really chip in into these issues. To some extent, I feel government has become reluctant due to the fact that many of the organizations, women movements, have come up and taken the responsibility to speak about the issues happening in the society and how these women have not gotten justice. But I feel the government should have a policy followed up, implemented, looking on how they can get justice for these women, the victims who have, you know, reported these cases. Because this does not only go to the judiciary, even back at universities. You're reporting this lecturer, yes, to these stakeholders who are telling you they are fighting against sexual harassment, but when you tell them about everything, some of them will tell you, you know what, he's a Gambanogo, or he's related to maybe vice chancellor, or he's related to this. But I feel we should stop seeing the people who abuse the women as powerful, and look up to giving an opportunity, a platform to these women who have been victimized, safe, equality, and not looking at them like these women are they are noisemakers. That's how they call us, by the way, in the public. When a woman comes up to talk about her issue, they call her a noisemaker, and we are not noisemakers. But it is because we are affected by issues that we need these people to look into and see the way forward, give us a base, and not only just a base, but a protected base, safe, where we can air out. And I know, yes, I've reported this guy, he can really, be worked on. But not me reporting and I'm like, oh, I am submitting the papers and then they are telling me, you reported a big guy. We really don't know whether you will be worked on. You see?
Yeah. Maybe to come in there, Prisca, as you add to that, does having more women judges, have a promise in women who report these cases getting justice?
I think to some extent, having more women in the spaces in the space of the judiciary contributes to some extent, because we also know that the movement somehow, as we have seen that, I'll give an example of Lina Zidrega, where there's a case that she talked about, that she was helping a woman get justice for having custody for to her to stay with her children, and there was a lot of conflicting forces because then she was the judge, but she took a stand to stand up for the truth. So for me, I feel there are those women who we know will always keep, they will be loyal to the movement. They will still look out for the truth and get justice for women. But also we cannot have a guarantee that all of them are. Because there are so many conflicting forces, corruption and all that. And money can also be power. So how best do we actually get the judicial system to also align with the women's values? For me, I think, first of all, the different farms that are into women's movement but also have inculcated the law. There is a very huge gap in the knowledge, and that's why you'll find that women may not even understand how their cases, or even when they've reported, what needs to be done. I have seen that so many women don't know what steps it takes even to to report or to have their cases followed on. So can we even get the knowledge more to women so that we give them the power to understand their rights? If they understand, let me tell you this: if you go to police and report, and they see you have the knowledge of the law, they see you have the knowledge of what your power is as a woman and your rights, the intimidation will come off differently. It will not come off like it would have been if you were very innocent and very naive of what you as a woman has power to. So can we have the knowledge? I think as women, as we move out in societies, then disseminating of the knowledge to even the young girls or the women. Can we have like clubs in society, in schools, that teach girls their rights? These are things that are not taught in schools. We only see women who are have studied law or something, who get the knowledge to even understand their rights. But it's not being done at the grassroots, and yet the cases even are more there. So I feel this would be a very great move for us to it would be a step towards getting women more given justice in the system. And also, besides that, I think it would be very fundamental if we have not just the knowledge disseminated to them, but government, because it goes back to how, like she said, it goes back to how the government is also helping, because even when you have that knowledge, because when I go to police to report, I definitely know I definitely know what it's supposed to. But if I'm not treated the right way, it will leave me so bitter. I'll go back bitter in society. But if government take a second efforts to see that our judicious, the laws and policies are functional, not just functional of we are having women listen to, but all that. But can they be inclusive? Can they be transparent? Can they be can they be more of what the truth is? What not just having propaganda spread and then women are left bitter. Women, we are having so many of these cases still remain in society. These things traumatize us, and when they traumatize us, I am going to come off bitter. I'll be in a society. I can't even function well in a workspace. I can't even function well in the work that or the things that I do, which is not a good thing for the movement, right? So I think for me, those are the steps as women, or first of all, it's upon us, because the government has failed us at all levels. The systems and the implementation has failed us at all levels. But can we also have a move as we pursue them?
And use our collective
power. So for me, that would be very, very fundamental.
And maybe as you're coming in, Helen, there is a tweet. Well, we're having this conversation, as she said, over the weekend. There is a tweet that was shared, and it says, the leadership coach says, hopefully one day the young ladies at NSSF Uganda will have the courage to speak up against the sexual harassment that they have endured from a big man. God grant you healing. And I'm more interested in, the after. And then someone comes and says, just don't pay them to speak up. And why are you bringing it up now? And then below there, Samantha comes and says, any time is a good time to speak up. Perhaps people had thought he would have been brought to book by now. Since he hasn't, they have chosen to speak out. And just that tweet, the magnitude of it. First, we know our abusers. Two, our abusers have power. But then also, the public will police when to speak out. How do we, when it comes to especially sexual harassment within the workplace, how do we, push back? How do we advocate differently for people in workspaces, people in employment? It could be as simple as catcalling. And I don't know if men have come to the realization that it's actually wrong to catcall me. It could be subliminal as touching me in places I wouldn't want you to touch me.
Not even say
and in narrative, it would be that, oh, they didn't rape you. But it's wrong because you violated my space. It could be as simple as And then I say simple in quotes because there is nothing.
Society makes it look
Yes,
simple.
yes. There's nothing simple about this. It could be as talking about, having a sexual conversation with me that I don't want to be privy to. And when you see these pockets of violence happen to women, and men grabbing it off as rubbish, or you're being too sensitive, how do we ensure we have, safe workspaces for women? Because it almost looks like, there's a cycle of sexual harassment that is coming.
Yeah.
And the people speak up at a point where it's beyond them.
Yeah.
Like, I've come to my breaking point. This is the fight. And so how do we sustain such a conversation, even in workplaces, to help people not just know, but also to advocate differently for women that this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Once this happens, boundaries have been crossed. How do we continue such a conversation?
I think how we can continue with such a conversation, the women that have been abused should open up. And opening up, like, you may not open up to everyone, but opening up to maybe, let me say, a friend who can help you. The problem why people fear at workplaces to open up is because I may go to you and I speak to you and I tell you, the boss did this, and you will tell, you a fellow woman, but you will tell me, Hellena, no need, keep quiet. Like, why are you speaking? Yeah, why are you speaking? But if we, as women,
we ally with each other.
Yes, ally with each other, and tell them, yes, this has happened. How can we face this man? How can we chip in other people who can help us get justice for you? But it is because very many of the women who work are like, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But they do not know that they are instead creating an unsafe place for another woman who is coming in.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and I also think organizations or workplaces should have check-in moments.
Yeah.
Most of the organizations, they just have meetings, conferences, stuff of that. But if they have women check-in moments where women of a particular organization can sit, and at this check-in moment, they're speaking about what the experiences they're having. Oh, this is what is happening. You'll find that they are creating a bond of trust with each other, and there will be people who will be opening up.
Yeah.
They'll open up and like, you know what, this has happened. Oh, he did it to you. Then they'll have a collective effort to fight this. Yeah.
Yeah. Prisca.
And my response to that is that, first of all, we need to recognize that some women are still gatekeepers to patriarchy. And adding on to what Hellena said is that as we get together collectively, we will have a better impact. But also in such workspaces, I want to think that in most cases, because I have really never worked in a space, I have not done that because I have seen how women have suffered in spaces of work because they feel are intimidated by the fact that if I speak, I'll lose my job.
Yeah.
If I speak, this will happen. First of all, you're not even supposed to feel guilty for leaving a space that was very toxic, not just to your mental state, but also to your physical state, right? So women should not be intimidated by such moves.
Yeah.
I am a Christian, and for me, it always goes back to that if God gave me this opportunity, He will lead me to another one.
Yes.
I don't have to feel, I don't have to feel bad for leaving a space that has been toxic to me. So we need to also approach that conversation in that sense. Women need to know that I believe in the power of women.
Then we risk being seen as too sensitive and not easy to work with.
And I also think a woman that takes that, if I spoke up against my boss, he will definitely feel bad. he will probably start a move of, or this woman should leave. I should fire her or something. It actually makes me feel more powerful because I spoke.
Yes.
In most cases where I get to speak by that, because you know there is there is power in vulnerability.
Yes.
When you open up, in fact, you will be surprised on how there's a book I read that says the world will actually conspire to help you achieve what you want. You will be surprised on how even victims who are not speaking up will come to tell you, oh my God, you're such a strong girl, you're such a strong woman. So for me, I think the same knowledge and understanding I have used to get to this place will take me to a better opportunity. Yes. I know that I have not lost my abilities and everything that I know. I will still get something better. It's just fair enough for me to leave a space. Me, I love my mental health, Banange. I love Prisca's mental health. So it's number one. Even if I'm staying with a relative and I know they're making moves against, to do something, I will leave, even when I don't have nowhere to sleep.
Actually, I love the audacity of Gen Zs because you're in tune with, what works and what isn't working, and you speak truth to power.
Yeah.
In our pushback, because now again it's because there is a lot of pushback happening in the movement right now. In our organizing, there is pushback of the narrative of the boy child. And so while we are advocating for women, it almost feels like there is a whole language around also the boy child, only to minimize and demean the work that we are doing for the girl child.
It's happening, Banange.
So against such narratives and such pushback, how do we sustain our advocacy, especially as young women? Yeah.
As young women, we need to understand, first of all, just because the pushback is happening, we need to advocate for the boy child, does not mean that people that need this movement are not there. Yeah. I also need to concede that as Uganda, I will speak in the context of Uganda because this is happening a lot. We have even seen ministers speak on the floor of parliament that we need to advocate for the boy child. And I'm not saying that as a women's movement, we need to exclude them because we are in a society and we need to co-live together. Yeah. My work partially has been around actually working with men to understand their role in helping women. Yes. And as they understand that, they also I will give you an example. I went to a place called Atiak in Lira. We were teaching men about giving them menstrual knowledge. I was shocked on the surprise on their faces when they get to understand some certain aspects of menstruation that they didn't know, even when they're living with women who are married to 10 years. They have daughters who are menstruating, but they don't know this knowledge. I was shocked when we taught them on their response. They were actually positive. Yeah. So these men are out there who are actually positive and they're yearning to get the knowledge and understand how to help women. So women are still facing this. We have, if we go back to statistics, the cases of women who are being there's cases of gender-based violence are what a man faces, a woman even faces more. Exactly.
Yeah. So how do we advocate to have male engagement and male allies without them usurping these spaces that have been created to advocate for women and the experiences, their lived experiences of gender-based violence, of domestic violence? How do we add men to this conversation without, men taking that space out of our hands, of our grip? Yeah. Because in as much as we push for male engagement and having men, ally with us and have this conversation, we risk them, taking this language, learning the language and using it against us.
Yeah, it's also very true. I think there are definitely spaces. There are certain conversations that we can open to men. We can have them in a space where we will educate them on what they need to do. But also, there is to some extent knowledge that we cannot, power that we cannot give to them, that we need to ourselves. Because we are so traumatized by this patriarchal system. Yeah. I am not sure if this man was taught this, the next minute they will not want to sexually harass me.
Exactly.
They will still be, because they are mentally tuned to such things.
Yeah.
So he will look at me and then he was like, oh, you look like a snack or something. Then they want to do something.
There are men in these spaces who know the language of advocacy, but are abusers. And yet they've learned the advocacy language. But they're not divorced from being capable of being abusers or even sexually harassing girls in these spaces.
Exactly.
So how do we sustain advocacy and push back even in such a narrative, in such an epoch?
Just as Prisca said, there is some knowledge we cannot tell them, and there are some things we have to keep to ourselves. One thing I've realized, we women, we are very vulnerable. At when, Tricia, you're a man and you've been in these places, and I am opening up to you as a girl. I'm like, Trish, this is what is happening. This is what is happening. And you create for me that space of comfort. I will feel like, oh, he understands me now.
And yet he's having a different
And yet
agenda.
he has a different mind. Yeah. So when this person creates a very safe to say, but not safe environment for you, and you chip in and, you be with him, when it reaches time for him to sexually harass you, you will feel very, 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 very ashamed to,
they're guilty.
Because it wasn't something you're expecting. So you become, so the victim also, it now becomes a problem.
Yes.
Your guilt trip into.
Yes.
Because it's just like, even when you look at the context of marriage, just because you've married me, it doesn't mean that I'll have sex with you without consent.
Yeah.
So it applies even in this. I think we also need to empower our girls to understand some of these things. Just because you are available to maybe because they will look like they are available. Just because I
wore this skirt doesn't mean that I'm a candidate for sexual
exactly.
Exactly.
So we need to set boundaries, and we need to. Our boundaries need to be very clear. And by that I mean, if there is something that I have to I need to know that this and this cannot be accessed by certain people. But also, we need to know our worth. When I know that I'll be there for myself, it's because everything that everyone can tell me.
Before you even continue that, it's quite problematic, especially in the narrative of know your worth.
Yeah.
Because it's almost to imagine that powerful women and women in higher positions are not harassed. But, especially in a society that has an ideal victim, the ideal victim narrative, it's almost as though we also to say that sex workers don't get harassed. It's also to say CEOs don't get harassed. Because I may be powerful and I know my worth, and I am someone they look at in society. But I've experienced domestic violence. I've experienced gender-based violence. I've experienced sexual harassment. And so when it comes to worth, certainly there are very many times it isn't about it.
It's still compromised.
It's still compromised. It isn't about it. Because it has never been a conversation around worth. Because even people that know their worth have been harassed.
I know that. I know a couple of them.
Yes. So maybe how we then package language and package, our conversations around sexual harassment is to tell people that it's wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing about it that is okay, whether I know my worth or not, whether I am a maid or a CEO. There are boundaries around sexual harassment, around gender-based violence that need to be made, and this is where we cross. This is where we draw the line in the sand. It's like you can't keep doing these things. But maybe as we end, on your individual parts, what commitments are you making as young women in advocating and, in pushing against, gender-based violence, especially in this time that we have now?
Okay, I don't know whether this will really work, but I had a thought of how 16 days of activism can be incorporated into primary schools. And,
important.
Talk to these kids and tell them this is what it is, this is wrong. Because even the teachers whom we think they disseminating the information to the students, they are not doing the very, very best. So I have a passion of going to primary schools.
Now they're in holidays.
Yeah,
so
they're going. Yeah, actually, I was like,
and it usually happens around
November to
exams.
December.
Yes,
Yeah.
around their critical exams,
so
academic year exams.
So I think it is very important, even the Ministry of Education, to incorporate 16 days of activism into primary schools, into secondary schools. Because, you know, primary schools, recently I was speaking to my young little sister from Nabisusa, and I'm like, do you know about 16 days of activism? She's like, Hellena, I don't know. And I'm like, you don't know? She's like, yes, I don't know. I told her. Then she was like, I think it's a university thing. So they take it as a university thing, as an organization thing, as, you know, NGO things. But it is very important for the Ministry of Education to really incorporate 16 days of activism.
So we have these conversations from when they're young.
Yes, because people are getting this conversation when they're in
quite too late.
Too late. And someone's like, oh, that means sometimes all along I have been a victim and I've been keeping quiet. Just like in primary, a boy will call you some name and you're like, he just abuses me like that, and you take it like that. Yet it is a thing that he's sexually harassing you, even not when it is physically done. So I really think it is very important, and I commit myself to really speak to the young children, to the young girls, and even to the young boys. Recently, I was telling someone of Action Aid that I think it is important for the boys, the fathers, to be good examples to their sons. Because you cannot be my father and then you are sleeping with this one, you caught the other girl, and
sometimes
I was
even girls your age.
Yes, and you are sleeping and then you're commanding respect from me. It's not that children should be disrespectful, but I think we as children should go back and tell our parents, I think this is what you're doing is bad. And daddy, I think I will report you to the authorities. Even when your father threatens to throw you out of the house, it is okay, because you have spoken for a girl who is in the village, in your homestead, and she can't speak. She's been sexually harassed and she's just quiet. I did that for some girl. She was being sexually harassed by the uncle, and she used to come and she was walking in a weird way. So I'm like, why are you walking like that? She told me, the uncle is a lecturer at Kumba. I open up to my dad. My dad is like, you know what? Let us first go to the hospital. We find out what the problem is. We checked, everything was fine, but it's only that she was always being used in weird hours. And remember, his wife was always there. So we went forward with police stations, stuff like that. We went to home centers for teenagers to at least find for her a space she can be safe in. And this guy found out that I was doing that. Up to date, this guy hates me. He says...
Did the lady get help?
She got help.
That's important.
Because she left home. And I told my dad, yes, I have done this for this girl, but I do not want anyone to hear that I've done this. Not because I did not want to be out there and help other girls, but this guy had begun looking at me in some way. So he began going to also my sisters, you know, trying to tell my sisters, giving my little sisters phones, and I got to know about it. And when I was hard on my little sisters were like, but he's a good neighbor. And I'm like, so I had to open up to my little sister and tell her, this is what is happening.
He's a predator.
Yes. And I feel we young ladies who have gotten this information, these opportunities to go to these platforms to speak, we should really speak to the best and tell our stand about end of what? Gender-based violence, sexual harassment, because it should be a no-go zone for our little ones who are coming after us.
I hear you. Prisca, your commitment to this?
For me, I think I will still go back to what I feel as we take steps in front, we take two back.
Yeah.
You take one in front, you take two back. It's something that will help. I feel, I really have a strong feeling and an instinct that this will help us to have sustainable results.
Yeah.
It's providing a safe space. Recently, a friend, Pony, you know her, opened a campaign where we write our commitments.
Yes, yeah.
So I wrote my commitment, and I still remember to quote, I commit to provide a safe space for women to speak and use their voice. I may not share my experience of what I actually also went through. It's quite very personal, but I've shared it.
Okay.
There's a time I was very radical, and I felt so bad about what I saw was happening. A girl approached me from Makerere. Someone had raped her. She was pregnant. She didn't know the rapist. So she was carrying a baby. She doesn't know
Who
the owner is. Can you imagine? You're the dilemma, you're in university. I felt very bad. I was like literally crying. So I shared a story. It was in like my personal space where my friends could see. And from there, I got close to 17 girls who came to speak to me. One of the girls, it's very good to note. One of the girls was a victim from when she was 7 years old, but at that time she was 18.
Oh, wow.
And she had never shared this with anyone her entire life. This was an uncle who did it to her. So this triggered my understanding of a safe space and the voice. And that's why for me I feel this will be one of the greatest things that we can achieve as a generation of women who are, young women who are activists for women to have a safer space, for women to be able to speak, for women to women to be seen and heard and everything. It's something that I feel will be great. So for me, my commitment is to provide a safe space. And that's why I find great joy, and it fills my heart when I go out there and I speak to girls, when I meet them and they talk to me. And I give them a space. And when they do that, actually, they feel stronger again.
Yeah.
And then my other commitment is to challenge gender-based violence. I will be radical. I will not see this happen and keep quiet. That's the truth. And if society wants to term me as a noisemaker, let me be a noisemaker. I think also, if this can still happen, if I can do it, then other young women will do it.
Yeah.
And I know we will get better results.
Yes.
Also through Atangaza Foundation, our commitment is still to provide a safe space for women, to empower women, to go to their top of their best abilities in different aspects. And this, I think, will be a very great milestone as we move forward, because we are now the next Tricias.
Exactly.
We're going to be the next Bellas.
Yes.
So ideally, we want you guys to look back and say we set the pace for them, and they are doing great, and we are seeing better results. We want to see a Uganda where not 25% of girls below the age of 18 are mothers of sometimes more than even 2 babies.
Yes.
So we want to see women grow. We want to see young women grow to their abilities and provide and be able to use the spaces they have around them. So my commitment is that, and I am really very positive that we'll get better results.
Yes. And thank you, ladies, especially because you reminded me of the reason why we do this work and why we keep doing it and why we sustain it in the 365 days where we show up here at the Women's Show to, advocate for women and have women's voices be heard. The statistics are grim. 1 in 3 women faces gender-based violence every day. And in the Uganda Crimes Report, defilement and rape increased by 2.3% in 2021. Rape increased by 1.4%. And so it almost looks like we are still where we were, if not in a worse position. But as we advocate in the 16 Days for Activism, I hope that you're reminded that the fundamental question being answered and asked today is that we keep women secure, that the security of women becomes paramount, even for us as we advocate constantly. So we call upon policymakers, governments, judiciary, women's movements, men's movements to join and collaborate with us, even parents and families to collaborate with us and unite in advocacy against gender-based violence. Thank you for joining us. I've been your host, Tricia. See you next week.